Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Rambo Show, where we don't care about egg chasing for 24 hours. As always, I am Pommy and Oz. I'm joined by my good mate, co-host, and football aficionado, Mr. Fazz. How are you doing, Fazz Lenga?
Mate, it is good to be here. This is just like if you can step away from watching that shit stain of a football club, Collingwood, play GWS, please come on to this, because this is what it's all about. The round ball really getting into action, really hot. It's actually hot at the moment. I'm loving every second. European football's kicked off this week. This is where you want to be. We got games coming out our ass every 3 days. We got games. It's huge.
Well, all of our sides are in Europe, so I mean, it's kind of weird because we're invested in the football as well, the AFL. Usually the weekends are free for us. So how are you finding that adjustment of now waking up at 5 a.m. 3 times a week, and then the weekend is also a game of AFL in the daytime, so you have no nana nap anymore?
Yeah, look, last time Carlton were playing finals, West Ham had their first season back in the Premier League after being promoted. So it has been a while. I got up at 5 o'clock this morning to watch West Ham in the Europa League. And I think it's I'm going to be honest, I'm a bit tired and, excited for tomorrow with Carlton playing, obviously. And then that rolls into West Ham playing Liverpool on Sunday night, mate. It is just a smorgasbord of sport and absolute round ball, mate. Europa League, Champions League, Conference. What more do you want?
Mate, it's all going on, and a lot of coffees have been had. And gotta say, last week, Uncle Pommy got 9 out of 10.
Yeah. So what did I get?
I think 6 out of 10.
Yeah. Stiff. It's stiff.
I had a week last week. I did have a week. We've got Amy saying North London is red. Davies talking about Ireland. The Rugby World Cup's gone on as well. I have caught little bits of that as I'm trying to stay awake for like a 1 o'clock fixture. It's actually helped. Like when you get up, like you can't sleep and your alarm goes off in an hour and you're like, I ain't going back to sleep. Rugby has helped tide me over to get to that magical midnight mark. But last week,
it's wild.
It is mental. It is mental. But last week was a mental game, a week of football. It really was. If you were a fantasy guy like me and Fazz, just about every good player in the league was shit. Confusing week, and we started off with probably the result that was probably the only one that went to the form book, Liverpool. But it did start off, didn't it? There was signs. Wolves take the lead early, and Liverpool left it very late. But in the end, quite comfortable for the old Liverpool faithful, wasn't it?
Oh, mate, just to touch on fantasy, I'm pretty sure I won an award for the lowest score ever. Oh, mate, I had an absolute mare. But yes, no, look, this game, it was a pretty entertaining game. I think I said last week I could see Wolves getting a goal. That's just the way Liverpool play. They do look like conceding. I didn't think it was going to be an early one. But really, once Liverpool settled in, this game was only going one way, and it could have been, 4-5, 6-1. But the result went the right way, and Wolves, to their credit, got on the score sheet, and they're looking relatively dangerous with their ability to score. Their ability to defend, it's questionable.
Yeah, and I think we touched on it last week. Liverpool, they're just going about it quietly, aren't they? Everyone's talking about City. Everyone's talking about Arsenal. Liverpool looking really, really like the Liverpool of old. They can seem to score in clusters at the minute. And you know what? That midfield is humming, isn't it, at the moment at Liverpool?
Oh, they're tasty. Absolutely tasty. The midfield, McAllister, he probably had a bit of a slower start to his move there, but I think he's absolute quality signing. Gakpo up front. I think these are names that aren't familiar. You know what I mean? They're not sexy. They're not familiar. You've got obviously Mo Salah doing Mo Salah things, but they're just, I don't know. I don't know. I've been holding off, but I'm going to say it now. I was going to leave it to next week. I'm going to say it now. Could we be seeing a come from the clouds challenger for City? Could we be seeing it?
I mean, they've got a lot of experience there. I think people forget about Liverpool. There's a lot of championship title winners in that team who have done it for Liverpool, but there's also players that have done it for other clubs as well. So I'd never count Klopp out. I think Klopp is a great manager, and I think last season people have just totally forgotten Klopp is one of the best coaches in world football.
Yeah, and you think a lot of teams do have that before winning a title, have that blip, that one step back to take two steps forward. They've made some shrewd signings. I like their attack. Looks like they've finally been able to replace Mane, which we all said was going to be their biggest issue last season. Just keep an eye on them. Play West Ham this week, so I wanted to go early now and say that they're a title contender, and hopefully they slip up this weekend. But good all round, scoring goals. Love their work,
mate. European champions respect European champions.
Absolutely, they do.
I agree with Adam. I think both me and Fazz have relegated Wolves. Nothing said anymore. And Amy, stay tuned. Don't worry. I have been looking forward to smiling at the disarray of Raya signing for Arsenal. And I've got the week for it. But we move on to Villa Palace. And tell you what, Villa, they look dead and buried in this game. And again, this seems to be the common theme this week. Last-minute goals and clusters of them. And Moussa Diaby was like cut Palace apart that last 10 minutes.
Hey, it's like I always say, you don't have to be dead to be stiff. And gee whiz, Palace was stiff. When we saw the World Cup go and they spoke about the extended injury times, a lot of people were just like, is it going to make that much of a difference? This week alone, I think we saw, was it at least 4, maybe even 5 goals in the 97th plus minute mark. That's insane. When you think about it, how many games you see go to 98 minutes? This went to the 101st minute. That's pretty insane. So I think that's a bit of a watch. I think we'll see a little bit more of that, a little bit more of these late goals with this extended injury time that they're going with.
It's making Fergie time look like KO bite size.
Mate. Fergie time. Mate, imagine Sir Alex Ferguson in this era with this extra time. You'd be seeing world record scores.
Mate, it'd be like AFL, there'd be 4 quarters. It is though, like, does anyone else though find it bizarre that, like, we've always had quite a bit of injury time? Like, I remember the era from like 2 minutes was considered fucking hell, that's a lot of time, to when 4 minutes started becoming norm. Like, this game we're talking about now, Villa, that was 16 minutes, right? 16 minutes, wild. Which is a long time. And it happened in Europe as well this week. Like, loads of goals last minute. The United Bayern, 3 goals after 95 minutes. Is this because of fatigue? Or is this just like what? Like, because we've never seen, usually, even when we've had 5 minutes, you get maybe 1 goal every 10 games. It seems to be like settling games now. Once it gets to that 90 plus 10 bit, it seems to be a guaranteed goal.
It does. And I think you're spot on. I think the fatigue is a real thing, real thing. Players are tired. And I said this before, now that we're getting with European football kicking off, teams are going to have to make a decision. Do you go out and try and win a European trophy like West Ham? Do you settle for a quality league table finish? Because I'm genuinely believing, unless you're Man City, I don't think you can have both. I genuinely believe Man City are the only team in the world who can have both win the Premier League, and go deep in Europe. You have your Arsenals, you have all that. You have to make a decision, and the decision's got to come in the next 2 months about, are you going to prioritize your league position, or are you going to prioritize European football? Because you add it all up, this is going to be an extra 2, 3, 4 games on top of season if you add up all these minutes.
Mate, I agree with you. And where do you stand on it, Fazz, and people in the chat? Do we cap it? Because I honestly think, like, when I'm seeing double figures for stoppage time, like this game, I watched this game and I was actually like, no fucker's been injured. Where have we got 15 minutes from? Like, yeah. I understand if you've got like a David Boost leg break, but we are talking about people changing shin pads, like tying their shoes.
Where do I stand on it? Depends directly to what the score is. If West Ham's 1-0 up, I think, mate, cap it to no extra time. But dead seriously, I think I hate when rules come in place that try or that force to change tactics. For as long as we've been alive, one of the best parts about this sport was when your team, a notorious battler, West Ham, was shithousing a 1-0 Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, and you slowed it down at the 60th minute. You walked to a throw-in. You stayed down there a little bit. That's part of the game. That's what we loved about it. As a supporter going for a shit team, that's what you loved about it. This is taking that tactic away from it. And people will argue, well, good, keep the game flowing. You know, we don't want that simulation. We don't want that stuff. To me, that's part of the game. To me, that shows intelligence of players to know, geez, we're up against it. We're up against it here big time. Goalkeeper needs to take it, fall on the ground, you know, whatever it is.
Classics.
If they're stopping the watch every single time there's a throw-in, every single time there's a keeper, it removes that entire tactic from the game, and I think that's wrong.
Can I play devil's advocate here? Because I saw the same interview that Chrissy Lang did, saying that they want to get it around 60 minutes in play, which is unbelievable for a 90-minute game. That 30 minutes is fuck about. I thought of a compromise. We're complaining about it because they're saying plus 15 minutes. Why don't we adopt a different model and just pause the in-game clock? So then it's not 15 minutes. Then it is actually what you say on the tin. And once it hits 90, it's game over. Do you know what I mean? Like, have a rugby rule. Next time the ball is dead from 90 minutes, it's game over. Like you see in rugby, once it hits the 80, they just kick it into the crowd. Team wins. Like, I would love to see that, because then we wouldn't be having this conversation. We wouldn't know. It could be like 2 days, but the clock still says 89 minutes.
I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it at least trialed, at least give it a go, see what it looks like, because it just looks stupid.
There's nothing better than seeing. I've got to say, like, the United have had some close games, and when you're getting plus 14 minutes to hang on, and you're like, oh,
that's a long time. Like that Palace game, you flick it on, you think, geez, did someone get killed in the second half? Like, did they have to do a post-mortem before, you know, like anyway, look, move on. Let's go through the results, but it is an issue, and I think it's going to continue to be an issue.
Mate, and then we come to a great game. Fulham, been mighty impressive so far at the start of this year. Keep finding ways to win. Vinicius with his, he's becoming prolific almost. He's becoming the new Mitrovic. 65th minute, and Fulham continue. They're decent home form, it has to be said.
Love it. Love the way they go about it. I think they're looking good. We spoke about them last week, that they took it up to City and so on, and well done to them. I think this says a lot about Luton as well. The week before, what was it, 2-1 to West Ham, 1-0 now to Fulham. They don't have the points on. Yeah, they don't have the points on the board, and I think, you know, people are like, oh, they're going to go down with the lowest point total ever, but they're not getting smashed. And I think that's, when you're not getting smashed, that is a great thing, because they can bullshit their way to a 1-0 win or something. If they keep playing this way, they will get an opportunity to bullshit their way to a 1-0 win, because it's the law of averages. So I actually liked Luton in this game, but Fulham did the business, did what they do. 1-0, move on. They're not going to.
Very Premier League win. I thought this was an old school 1-0. We're more Premier League experience than you are type win, and I think that's reassuring for Fulham fans because they're looking settled.
Yeah, they're the wins you have to take. And Adam Shaw's right, not getting smashed yet. There's always a possibility that the season just gets a little bit too long for Luton, a little bit too heavy. They haven't really played the big boys yet, so we'll see.
You know what I like about Luton though? We said this last year about Forest and why we were worried about Forest, and we talked about the size of their squad. Right now, what I love about Luton is they've loaned 13 players out straight away. Right, they haven't kept players like Forest did. They've got quite a small squad. When you look at Luton. And I remember you saying, Fazz, the Nottingham Forest squad was so big that if you're in a shit fight, you want that closeness and that camaraderie. I actually like what Luton have done, that they've jettisoned the players that they've deemed not good enough. And some of the players they've loaned played 20, 30 games last year. I really like that mindset of saying, if we're going to be in a shitstorm, it's going to be a real small, condensed squad. They haven't made the mistakes of other clubs who have brought in 50 names from Uzbekistan, hoping they'll stay up.
No, absolutely. I think you're spot on. When, David Moyes speaks about it a lot. I've just recently read Mark Noble's autobiography, and he speaks about it a bit. It is a common misconception in this modern world. Maybe it's the FIFA playing world or the Football Manager playing world, whatever it is. Big squads aren't the be-all and end-all. It looks sexy when you've got your FIFA and say, mate, look, I've got 15 blokes who can play in the one. In the real world, a manager, when you're managing a team like Luton or Sheffield or any of these teams who've come up, a manager needs to know what his best 11 is. And you stick with that best 11 and you only make a change through injury or otherwise. You might bring in one or two to bolster your depth, but you've got to have your best 11 and back it in. That's how you survive relegation. Trust me, I've been there. I do it most years, most seasons. That's how you survive relegation. You stick for your best 11 that are hard to beat, and you're filling gaps here and there. Notts Forest squad was way too big. Yes, they stayed up, and yes, whatever, it goes against what I'm saying. But you have to have that small squad. Mate, spot on. Just ask Graham Potter. Small squad, looked like a supreme manager. Goes to Chelsea where he's got 15,000 blokes. Mate, and he was sacked that quick. I don't reckon he knew the names of half the blokes before he got sacked.
Probably got lost at the training ground. Like, who's that prick?
Absolutely.
Talking about Graham Potter and talking about, we got Adam saying they'll probably beat Spurs. Amy saying Luton have got a chance against Arsenal in a brain fade. A team that I think Luton could beat. United at home, United, Brighton. Fazz backed my boys and I went against them. Was like, we're not winning this game. And I was proven right. And probably, I would say, the most disappointing performance of any team this week was the fact that Brighton looked like the home side at Old Trafford and 3-1 flatters United. That could have been 4-5, 6-0. I have never seen a side at Old Trafford in my lifetime cut United apart with that ease. And they were chasing the game from pretty much 10 minutes in.
We'll get to United a bit later on. I'm sure we will. Let's talk about Brighton a little bit. They just come from strength to strength. Once again, Dezabi, he's just doing the business. And I love the way they play. I'm sorry that it happened to your team. I tipped United because I just think you can't be this shit for this long. Come on. But gee whiz, man, that was hard to watch. It was very hard to watch. I think I actually genuinely think Ten Hag doesn't know his best 11 right now. I spoke about it when teams fighting relegation. Obviously, United aren't going to be fighting relegation, but it's the same deal. You need to know your best 11. I think it's changed consistently. Who are his two centre backs? What's going on? Does Christian Eriksen play out wide? Does he play straight? Is it 2 up front? Is it, does Rashford play out wide? Does he play up front? Fernandez ended up at centre-back for a little bit. I don't know what was going on. Is McTominay, he's not a wide midfield player. I just don't think Ten Hag really knows what his best 11 is right now.
The selections and the substitutions that game,
mind-boggling.
It had me questioning if he actually even fucking knew football, to be honest. by about the 45-minute mark, I was ready for anyone. Adam asks, worse than the 6-1 versus City and Spurs. The Spurs one, we had Ollie, and I was heavily against Ollie. And the Man City one, losing 6-1 to Man City, it pains me to say it. They're so good. I can probably copy it. Brighton, though, no disrespect to Brighton, and I agree with Fazz. De Zerbi's got them humming. The great work Potter did. What I loved about Brighton, and this is my issue with United, is Brighton came out and said, you're going to play our style. United looked like a mid-table side that is going into these games saying, oh, let's hope we can contain you. And we're having possession for possession's sake, where watching Brighton, it's one touch, get it out wide, get it on the overlap. And United don't know what to do with the ball. It looks like we're just trying to get 90% possession so it balances the books. Absolutely shocking performance. And Hodgland was the only one who I thought left this game, and maybe Hannibal with any self-esteem and self-respect.
Gee whiz, it takes a lot of self-respect to score a goal when you're 3-0 down and celebrate like he did.
First goal at Old Trafford, though.
No, I know. It's good on him. But look, like I said, we'll get to United a little bit later on, but is it a case of second-year blues for Ten Hag? And, we spoke about the Jurgen Klopp. Is this a 1 step back for 2 steps forward? More looks like it's a 3 steps back for hopefully 4 steps forward. Who knows? But we'll talk about them a little bit later. But it is a concern at the moment.
Question for you without notice, Faz and chat. Brighton smoky for top 4. I think they are.
Absolutely. We spoke about it. We spoke about there is an opportunity here. Other than Man City, most teams are going through a transitional phase at the moment. Arsenal do they know who they are, what they are? They finish second. Do they celebrate finishing second? Do they think they can go the next step? That's a transitioning phase. They're not going to drop out of the top 4, but that's a transitioning phase. Most of these top teams, Liverpool, they've come out of the blue. Tottenham out of the blue. Can they hold on? But there are definitely a smoky. There's about 6 teams, I think, who are a smoky for that top 4. If not the top 5 or 6. Huge.
I think Amy nails it as well. Chris got them 5th. Oh, Amy thinks they'll finish top 4 as well. But what a factory as well. Got to credit them. They've lost some top name players and they just keep finding them. Do you know what I mean?
Like the Sydney of the Premier League, to be honest.
And pretty soon, Brighton, if they made top 4, they don't have to be a selling club.
Absolutely not.
That's scary. That's scary.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we come on to another team that probably is top 4 bound, right? And that is Tottenham Hotspur, Ange Postecoglou. We're talking about 15 minutes stoppage time, another one. You know what? I actually hate myself because I actually switched it off 92nd minute and I was like, Sheffield United have lost this. I had some investment in this game because of fantasy. I was like, my fantasy team's cooked with Spurs. Woke up in the morning to see 2-1. And I was like, what the fuck happened? So I had to watch it. Richarlison, though, I actually think, and I want to put this to you, Faz.
Yeah.
Right. And the chat. I actually think man management is dying in the Premier League, right? And in world football. And I think there is too much psychology going into nonsense. And you look at Ange and how he treats his players. He did a great press conference on the Wednesday. Richarlison came out and said he's seen a psychologist. He's suffering with his mental health, not just on the pitch, but he was quite open off the pitch as well. It was affecting his game. Ange came out and said, until he says to us he's not playing, he's a valuable member of the team, and we're not going to treat him any differently to any other players. We're going to wrap our arms around him and give him love. He brought him on with 7 minutes to go, and Richarlison paid him back. Created the goal, scored a goal. you know what? We need more of this in the in sport. People being personable and looking after the players and not reading for a hymn book. Fantastic management by Ange, and what a great performance from Spurs.
Absolutely. The human nature. I don't care whether you've got, £2 to your name or you're a multi-millionaire. Everyone wants to feel valued and everyone wants to feel loved, whether you admit it or not. That is the core thing that all humans have in common. Richarlison just needs to be loved. He just needs his arm around him. Look at him. I mean, the scary thing about this is if Richarlison can find his form, mate, dangerous, because he's a bloody good player. So that's scary for them. Man management, absolutely. We spoke about it at length on whatever day that was. What day was that where we spoke at length? Yesterday.
2 days ago.
I can't remember. Mate, I'm on holiday, so all the days blend into one. But we spoke about it at length about man management, and it's absolutely gone out of football. Everyone is yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir, trying to make everyone the same. Everyone does, mate. Sometimes the other beautiful thing about humans is we're all different. Things make us tick differently. As a teacher, I always say, you can't expect kid A and kid B to learn the exact same thing at the exact same rate, doing the exact same thing. It doesn't work. It's the same with adults in sport. It's the same with adults in all jobs. They all learn at different rates. They all learn different ways, and they all succeed in different environments with different people. That's a reality. How often do you see a player leave one environment, go to another, and thrive and become a superstar? No, this might be hard for some people to hear, but 99% of players who are playing in the Premier League can play the fucking sport. They can play the sport. Like, they wouldn't be on a Premier League contract if they couldn't play. It's about getting up here sorted. That's what it's all about.
Mate, it's spot on, and I think you nailed it there. And I think Ange, like Adam says, do you know what I mean? The mood has changed around Spurs. They feel like a serious football club. And spot on what you said about Richarlison. People forget. I always say, you look at Richarlison since Everton have lost him, they are relegation fodder. That's how good he is. Right?
He's a superstar.
He made them look good, right? And I think no one's talking about this. Ange has got the toughest job in, I would say, in probably even tougher than the United job, because they lost probably a guy that will be one of the best players ever for Spurs about a week into it, right? Yeah. And he didn't get a chance to replace it. Most managers would be making excuses, would be building up the credits in the bank. He's got on with the job, and you know what? He's getting the results, and Spurs are another team that look like top 4 bound at the moment.
Oh, absolutely. And what I love, like what you said, losing Harry Kane, water off a duck's back to Ange. He's like, we'll play with what we've got. We play with what we've got. The famous line for anyone, who's into a bit of medieval stuff, the famous line of, this army's not big enough to win. Yeah, but we'll fight with what we've got. That's a reality. You don't just say, oh, hang on, we don't have the players, we'll just lay back and die. That's not how it works. And that's what I love about Ange, because plenty of managers along the way, we know who they are, notorious sooks, foreign managers, tend to bitch and moan and sook and complain. Life is too hard. This is too this. Listen to Jurgen when things aren't going right. Listen to Mikel Arteta when things aren't going right. Whinge. Get on with the job. And that's what I love about Ange. He's got it in here. That's what I love about I know he's Australian, but I love about older English managers as well. They just move on with it. They don't get stuck into what could have been. They said, this is a reality. This is the way it is.
Mate, I think you've nailed it. Nailed it. And talking about old English managers, rumours are Chris Wilder is making a return to Sheffield United.
Look, if they sack their manager, they deserve to go down. What a fucking piss take that is. Yeah, they deserve to go down. And yeah,
I agree. It's mental.
Oh,
6 weeks in. I mean, you're sacking a coach.
Oh, mate. And they're not even in the bottom 3 at the moment. Like, come on. Yeah.
Mate, it's mental. Shout out to Mick. He's Pompey, top of the league. You love to see it. And we move on, talking about fighting, dying to your last man. Yeah. Man City playing the mighty West Ham United. And this game here, it started off well with, we're going to be talking about him at length again. He's getting a lot of rap, is old James Ward-Prowse. Great take and goal. Went in at half-time. I did think of Fazz because I was thinking, fuck, Fazz must be on cloud 9. And then, obviously, this just shows you the gap and the quality. City, hate to say it on Fazz's behalf, masterclass. Do you know what I mean? Absolute masterclass. And the first I'm wrong of this show, Jeremy Doku, I said, I'm not quite sure he's the player they need. Absolutely. He took the piss, didn't he? What pace on him.
Yeah. Oh, lovely to see. And when you go to a team like Manchester City, you can flourish because you know, if you stuff up, there's always got to be people to clean up your mess or whatever. So it's brilliant. Look, what can I say? To me, it looked like a David Moyes masterclass to begin with. Typical David Moyes game. Absorb, counter, and what a goal from Ward-Prowse. Put his head where angels fear to go, as they say. If that even is the saying, I don't know. But he put it where he did, and he scored and go into 1-0 at halftime. But you just knew that City, they never give up, they never say die. And it was honestly it was 3 moments of quality that ended up seeing them win. Personally, call me biased. Whoever watched this game, 3-1, I don't think West Ham deserved that result. Would have copped 3-2 possibly. I mean, Kurt Zuma had a header saved off the line. I mean, what a save by Edison. And Antonio 1-on-1 fluffs his touch. It was West Ham had more goals in them. You could say City had a lot of chances too, but 3-1, it was a different 3-1 to say Liverpool and Wolves. It was a much different 3-1 to that. And I'm never happy with a loss, but as West Ham, they should walk away saying, we play like that, they can beat nearly anyone.
I think you nailed it because my team lost 3-1. Bella supports Man United too. I'll speak on behalf of United fans. I think you're right. I think your 3-1 was unfair. I think 3-2 was probably fair. Brilliant save by Edison. Not many keepers could do that. He absolutely bullet header. Antonio, 9 times out of 10, he puts that away. But your 3-1 versus United's 3-1, there was a point in time in the West Ham game you looked like you could win it. United, it's one of them ones that I would say Brighton will be disappointed. City, I felt like they'll probably say, yeah, this is probably flatting us because Erling Haaland, like, tell you what, it looked like you had a job on him, didn't it? But it just shows the quality of him. He
just needed one moment and he took it. West Ham played him so perfectly. And I couldn't fault West Ham. Like I said, it looked like a David Moyes masterclass. Adam's right. I think West Ham are sneaky good. They'll surprise a few. What's the most pleasing thing as a West Ham fan is they played Europa League this morning, and I think they made 9 changes to their starting 11 and got the job done. To me, depth is what's going to dictate West Ham's season via the league or Europe. Can they go back-to-back European champions? I believe they can, but the depth is going to dictate where they finish in the league. And I think, I'll harp on about it. Losing Declan Rice, horrible. Never wanted him to go. Wish he was still there. He can get fucked now, but I wish he was still there. But I genuinely believe that this is the best squad West Ham has had for many years. Many years.
Easy. Yeah. I said it to you last week. I actually think the Rice deal, you've built an absolute squad. Kudus looked amazing this week. Once he gets going, I think you'll be like Declan Rice, who honestly.
Yeah, this morning he was sexy, albeit against a lower ranked team in Europa, but he was incredible this morning. So good signs for West Ham. Tough game against Liverpool this week, which we'll get to later, but we'll move on.
Mate, and then Newcastle, and just for those who bullied Fazz with his Twitter about having West Ham above Arsenal in the league table, interesting fact, they're only 3 points off Arsenal. Early season, but you know what? It's part of me's rooting for West Ham to get above Arsenal because I reckon Twitter will be the best. But Newcastle United, they sprung some changes in this one. There was some pressure building on Howe. And we discussed that last week, saying it's a bit unfair. He's played 2 of the top 4 teams in the league. Return to form against a strong Brentford team. Callum Wilson getting the goal. But this game here is one of them 1-0s where, when you watch it back, Newcastle controlled this pretty well after the goal.
Yeah, it's a pretty safe 1-0. Pretty good 1-0 from Newcastle. I know I speak about it a lot. This was always a very important week for Newcastle. You might argue the biggest week in probably the last 2 decades almost for Newcastle. You know, a game on the weekend, Champions League, then a game again. How does Eddie Howe do it? Obviously, he was involved in Manchester City as an assistant, so he's experienced in that area. These teams playing Europe for the first time, this was always going to be a real. It didn't surprise me in the end that this was a real odd week for fantasy, because this was always going to be a bit of a, for these teams, your Villas, Brighton, even though they had a good, they were always going to see how they're going to go with their first season in Europe for donkey years. Newcastle got the result. No one's going to remember the scoreline. They'll just remember the 3 points as they move up the table.
Mate, I think you nailed it. And people mock me saying that Newcastle were a sneaky to make it out of their group. Cracking 0-0 with AC Milan.
Huge.
And if you watch Twitter, look at their fan base. Is what I was saying about Newcastle will pack every away venue in Europe with Geordie maniacs. So fair play to them. And I'm glad, because if they lost this game, you could just tell the way the media was going. It was going to be a bit of unnecessary noise. Big win. Yeah. I agree with you. Huge week for Howe.
Huge.
Gets the win against a strong Brentford side.
The draw and the draw in the Champions League. It's actually been a phenomenal week. And if they can finish it up with 3 points this weekend, I can't remember off the top of my head who they play. We'll get there in a minute. If they can get the result there, that's a phenomenal week. One of the biggest weeks ever. So good on them.
Mate, and then I'm so proud of this. I called this as a draw. Right. Fazz still is Team Chelsea. He's still backing him. Still backing him. And I've got to say, this, we talked about United possession for possession's sake. I watched this game and I regretted every fucking minute I watched this game. I was like, I could be in bed at 11 o'clock, huddled next to my wife. Instead, I watched this. Chelsea are probably the most toothless side I have ever seen. Bournemouth could have got this late as well. Had they been able to hit the target, this could have been 1-0, and I reckon we would be talking about, is it time to sack Poch? Chelsea in disarray at the minute, and that club looks soulless as well. It looks like they don't want to be out there.
How you watch this game? I'm impressed. That's probably the most impressive thing I've heard. Look, again, 65. I've got a 65% possession. They only had one more shot than Bournemouth, 14 shots to 13. Right? They had 65% possession. They had the same amount of chances, like big chances created one. Like, what the? Wild. This reeks of a club who just, as you said, they don't know if they're Arthur or Martha at the moment. And let's do it. Let's, as shocking as it was in 2016 when Leicester won the league. Now it's not going to happen, but could we see a Chelsea get relegated this season? Probably not. We know it's not going to happen, but no one thought Leicester were going to win the league in 2016. No one thought that.
I think there's huge problems there. I mean, like I agree with Red Pill here, Bosnak. I think getting away from football is probably the best thing for him. But I was watching them, and honestly, like, You know, the thing that got me, start of the game, they announced that Gallagher was captain, right? And then I thought back, and we did this show, and Gallagher was linked to you because Chelsea wanted to sell him. And I'm like, you have got a guy you have openly wanted to sell, now captaining the club in this game that you need 3 points. This club's in disarray. Like, Chelsea is a joke. And you know what? If the rumours are true that 16 Premier League clubs have petitioned to the EPL to investigate how they've got away with financial fair play, this could be disaster zone. And I agree with Adam. They've had injuries, but they've got a deep squad. There's winners in this team, and they look hot.
Biggest squad in the world. You're right, and this is what I was talking about. They've got no European football. There's no excuse now that the fixtures are going to start banking up for other teams. They've got no excuse, and how they've got away with financial fair play without having European football, it blows my mind. The fact that I know for a fact that last season West Ham were on the FA watch list for FFP. West Ham. I mean, what the hell? Like, that's a bit stiff. And Chelsea have kind of gotten away with it. I just don't get it. I know a lot of people say, oh, but look at Man City, look at Man City, look at Man City. They don't overpay for players. They don't pay £100 million for Declan Rice. They don't overpay for players. Plus, they're always in the European competitions. They're always winning trophies. That's where the money comes in. Like, Chelsea have done fuck all for how long, aren't in any European competitions, and still spending hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds. I don't see how they. How?
Pom's big call. Fat Frank Lampard's back Christmas.
Oh, man. Banter.
It's coming back. It's coming back. Fat Frank.
Banter.
Bring him back.
Please.
Bring him back. Bring him back. But, you know, Chelsea legit need to, if they're serious, they have a meeting. Is Poch the man? And they fucking take the medicine. They take the medicine. They cut that list. And they start formulating a squad of 24 players.
Yeah,
like,
they've got it. They have to
people.
absolutely. They've got to gut that list. Even if they're going to lose big money, you've just got to have a fire sale. Get them off your books. Crazy.
You know what? Me and Fazz disagreed on this. I don't rate Pochettino, and I am enjoying Chelsea's downfall. I don't often enjoy downfalls of other teams, but I am fucking loving it. And talking about a team that has probably set the benchmark, I usually take the piss out of Arsenal. Fair play to them. 3 years ago, there was Arsenal fans wanting Arteta gone. And I actually am going to say this about them. This is probably the most impressive win, because I think every title team has 4 banana skins a season. This was a banana skin because they fucked up last year against Dyche, and Dyche did it again. 11 men behind the ball and sending giants up for set pieces. Arsenal learnt a lesson this week, that they learnt the lesson from last year of how to cut apart a team that drops back. Moment of brilliance for Trossard. I don't know if Amy's still watching, but I know she is Trossard's biggest fan. Finally in the starting lineup this week in the European game. He paid you back, came off the bench for this one very early, 20 minutes, took the game apart. And a little moment of a laugh for me, because I said Raya going to Arsenal was going to cause fucking problems. It was 2 minutes 50 that De Bild did the article after this game that Bayern are looking at the Ramsey situation. So it's already started. Call me Uncle Pom. Fucking nailed it. But Arsenal, impressive. It has to be said. Tough game. 3 points and they move on.
You'd be a monkey's uncle if you think that Ramsdale is going to be at Arsenal next season. Might even go in January. He's as good as gone. Look, Arsenal, you're right. Banana skin games, they stuffed up majorly against Fulham a few weeks ago. They couldn't afford to do it again. I love this from Shaun Dux. I love this game. You know I'm all about it. I'm all about that dogged, get in, fight. To me, Everton fans need to walk away and saying, yes. Because prior to this, a couple of weeks ago, this is looking like a 6-7-0. The way Everton were bleeding goals was a disgrace. They've tightened up. They obviously didn't deserve anything from the game, which is fine. But they look so solid at the back. I loved it from Shaun Dux. And credit to Arsenal, does take a lot of bollocks to break that down. Everton are going to get a lot of draws. They keep playing like this, they're going to get a lot of draws. They'll bullshit 1-0 wins against some teams, which is great. That's how you survive. This is how you survive. There's hope for Everton yet after this.
Mate, I've got to say, Everton, that was the Dyche ball that we know and love. It's not the nicest to watch, but it's a funny thing. On the Ramsdale situation, I think this is interesting. We've got a European Championship coming up, which if you played for any other international team, if you're not the starting goalkeeper, there's probably a chance you don't get selected. Knowing England, Ramsdale hasn't been selected as England's number one, even though he's been playing. So he's probably a lock to start for the Euros if he doesn't play for the rest of the year.
Absolutely, mate. Gareth Southgate's number one rule is you don't play for your team, you're in. Look.
I think this is interesting, though, because I actually thought Bayern, they haven't sorted the keeper problem out. Ramsdale, I think it would be a great move for Ramsdale as well. I think with Kane there, that is a concern if you've got English players. England captain has pull.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I could not agree more. It'd be a great move for him. One thing I do, Amy, I completely agree with you in regards to everyone, Mikel wants 2 stars for every position. Great. That's fantasy land, though, unfortunately, because it just doesn't happen. Players don't want to sit on the bench. That's a fact. Unless you're playing for Manchester City and you're guaranteed trophies every season. And I'm talking guaranteed. They will win a trophy, whatever trophy it is, forever. Arsenal aren't guaranteed shit. They're not guaranteed anything. No one wants to sit on the bench for a team that's not guaranteed anything. You can't have 2 stars in every position. It's just impossible. 2 keepers. Obviously, you have 2 goalkeepers. You need to have 1 star keeper and a backup keeper. Neither Ramsdale or Raya are a backup keeper. They're both first choice keepers. And the problem is, and you're right, who says he's going to sit on the bench? Well, then Arteta's lost his fucking mind because you're not just changing keepers every 5 seconds. That's not how it works. We spoke about having a settled team. You're not just going to say, this week it's going to be Ramsdale. Next week it's going to be Raya. Tomorrow it's going to be Ramsdale. It loses all structure down the back. It doesn't work. You need to pick your keeper. You stick with your keeper. Your keeper is actually one of your most important players on the pitch. They're the loudest player on the pitch. They control the back 4. If you're chopping and changing every single game, it doesn't work. Change for cup games? Absolutely. Change for cup games. But you can't just chop and change every Premier League game. And Pommy's right 100%. With a Euros coming up, Ramsdale ain't want to be sitting on the bench. No chance.
It's a huge risk. I mean, do you know what I mean? It's a huge risk for any team that sorts it like that does it. I think it's just for Ramsdale. Like I think Pickford's spot is vulnerable in the England team. I would say the 2 positions you can get into the England team in a real world are centre back, because Lewis Dunk should be the centre back, and goalkeeper, because I don't think Pickford's the England number 1. I think Ramsdale is. And if Gareth Southgate starts to work out how to pick an England squad, that could go against him.
Well, and there you go. Well, that's the other $1 million question. Can Southgate work out how to pick a team?
We'll find out. And we end with probably the game that we all laughed at the start, but this was actually quite an entertaining game. Great to see Callum Hudson-Odoi score, a player that Chelsea have just jettisoned, really, and looks like he could be the type of player Chelsea lack. Burnley doing TAFE Man City, but fair play, fair game in the end, and both teams look really good in this one.
There is something beautifully poetic about the only player that Chelsea decided to get rid of is the player they actually probably need right now. I love that. And Amy's right. It should have been him at the World Cup. Look, people know I've been very, very harsh on Burnley. That's not going to change now. still very harsh on them. It's a point. Yeah, good on them. Did they change it up a little bit? Yeah, I think so. I think they did change it up ever so slightly, playing away from home. When you're going to be fighting relegation, both of these teams are going to be looking at this score and saying, this is the one where we needed 3 points. We spoke about this. This was a 6-pointer, and neither of them got out of it with anything, really. This doesn't help either of them, in my opinion. I think it's just a bit of a nothing result. But credit where it's due. They, Burnley, I said to Burnley, I don't see where Burnley's going to get their next point. They got a point. Well, now I don't see where they're going to get a win. So,
Well, I mean, 30 draws is a lot to survive in this league, isn't it? You know what I mean? That's the way you think of it. But yeah. I agree with Adam. Great game this. Both pinches of goals, and we still don't know. I agree with Red Pill. This is probably, I would say it's probably 2.5 points lost for Forest, 1.5 for Burnley, because I think drawing away is not so bad. I feel like if you're Forest, you would have wanted the 3 points here. And
absolutely.
And probably deserve it. But we come on to Fazz's favourite section. He wants to talk about signings of the summer for chat. Think of your signings of the summer. I'm with Fazz here. It's hard to look past this man. Even though he's got a hyphenated name, he has been sensational.
He's been everything I knew he was, and I wanted him to be, and more. James Ward-Prowse, clear signing of the summer. He's scored or assisted in every game that he's played for West Ham. Got another couple of assists this morning in the Europa League. He is just a David Moyes player. He set piece. Every time he stepped up for a corner, you thought West Ham were going to score. Every single time. It's incredible. It's going to continue. No disrespect to Southampton. I really like Southampton. I like the way they go about it. But he's come to West Ham as not the poster boy. He's not he doesn't have to do everything. He can actually give him an opportunity to push forward, have shots. He doesn't have to be a box-to-box defense, attack, all this, set pieces. He's got players around him who can do that work, and he just needs to be himself. He just needs to be James Ward-Prowse, and look what he's done. Long may it continue.
Mate, I think you nail it. And, I always find it weird, like, how the Premier League goes, right, is how people don't look. And Maddison's a great shout as well. I think Maddison has been sensational. I only have James Ward-Prowse above Maddison for the team he's playing for. I think what he's come into a midfield that's been decimated by Sells has James Ward-Prowse. Rice held that together. I think he stepped into Rice's shoes, given something different, but pulled the strings. But what I wanted to talk about, Maddison and James Ward-Prowse, both coming from teams that have been relegated, right? And I am shocked some of these Premier League teams haven't looked, because I follow Southampton quite closely, but I think there's players on there that if I was a coach in the Premier League, Shea Adams is one, right? Kyle Walker-Peters. These players who have got experience for a while in relegation and failed, that you bring in. If I was a Forest, I would have been looking at Kyle Walker-Peters, bringing him in. Shea Adams, someone who's got that grunt. And I am surprised no one's asked the question. You were one of the few clubs and Spurs that went after captains of these respective sides who have still got a lot of football left. And I think that experience is invaluable.
Absolutely. And it's not a sexy name. People get hung up on it. If his name was Jiminio Ward-Prowse, he'd be 100 million. It's fact, mate. He'd be a £100 million player. That's exactly what he is. With his numbers, what he does is incredible. Targeting those teams have gone out. Kyle Walker-Peters shouldn't be playing in Championship. Fact. It's magnificent. What more can you say? What more can you say? He's come in, hit the ground running, knows the league. Maddison has been fantastic for Spurs as well. There's been some good signings. If he is not in Southgate's next England squad, you'd have to question. You have to question agendas here.
Chris nails it. He should be in the England team. And you know what? I'm going to say this because I speak to a lot of the FIFA generation, right? And it fucking annoys me because people underplay David Beckham. When people talk about David Beckham, and I think James Ward-Prowse suffers from this, right? Yep. They see the free kick highlights, they see the crosses, and they're like, one-trick pony. Now, I was brought up, I was a teenager when Beckham was playing, absolutely fucking wrote the book on being an old school winger. Kept his width, overlap, defended well, simple passes. He could whip a ball in from all angles. You don't see the early cross anymore, but nowadays you see Kevin De Bruyne do it to Haaland, and everyone wanks themselves silly. But Beckham used to do that every game, right? Beckham could put and I think James Ward-Prowse is the same. Because he's a free kick specialist and a set piece, people don't see the fact he tracks back and makes that tackle. People don't see the fact that he plays that give and go, then 1-2s. Terry Moycott, spot on. Chris Waddle was sensational. John Barnes, all old school players that don't get the respect. But Beckham and James Ward-Prowse, I feel, because you're sensational at one part of the game, people forget how good he was if you take that away as well. He is an absolute diamond player. And I can't believe West Ham were the only ones who came in for him at 30 million. He fits He fits Brighton. He fits any team you could name. James Ward-Prowse would probably be one of their best midfielders.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And Adam's right. Tap-in merchant, free kick merchant, penalty merchant. Where does it end? Like, he can't be, next it's going to be, all he does is work hard around the ground. Like, it's fascinating how players get judged.
Adam, you'll love this. I was listening to Talk Sport, and some dickhead phoned in on Talk Sport and said Bellingham is overrated because 4 of the 5 goals he scored for Real Madrid were 10-yard tap-ins. So I went back and watched 3 of them. He's made tackles in his own box and started the play. I'm like, don't look at the end product. Look at how he's done it. Like, that's hard yakka. Yeah. I was a striker, so I never passed halfway. I can tell you I have full respect if you run the length of the field, make a tackle, play a 1-2, and then finish off the chance. That's further than I've ran in a season.
It's just something I just won't have it. I just won't have it.
I agree with James Ward-Prowse. If we were doing the Ballon d'Or, right, for the first 5 weeks, 1 would be Bellingham. I reckon 2 would be James Ward-Prowse.
Yeah, agreed. Spot on. Good call.
Adam, you see, this is right. Adam, I agree, right? Montiel versus Walker-Peters. Montiel makes sense. World Cup winner. But think about this. Notts Forest, relegation battle. Who are you going to trust? An Argentinian, right, who has been carried by the greatest player of all time, or Kyle Walker-Peters, who was had to work as a team of 11 to get everything he's got. Kyle Walker-Peters is a better player in a relegation scrap than Montiel. Like, no offense to Montiel. Great right back. I'd rather have Walker-Peters all day.
Yep.
Like,
yeah.
Right, Adam, spot on.
It's the FIFA generation is killed.
Do you know what I mean? I hold R2. It's not that hard to run.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah.
We go from happy to sad, and is time running out at Old Trafford, right? And I've got 2 people that are going to get the blame at Old Trafford, right? Ten Hag is going to cop the blame, and I think I'm starting to think both of these are equally in the wrong. Ten Hag, it's report daily that he is alienating the squad. There is a report today from a player, anonymous, that he's lost the under-21 dressing room, right?
Jesus.
Which scares me that under-21s are looking to come out of United because of the way Ten Hag is. And this goes on what me and Fazz were talking about Ange. Players nowadays, in our day, there was Paolo Di Canio. If he didn't have to train Tuesday, he'd come in Wednesday, and he was treated differently because he was a superstar. Now, I think Ten Hag has come in with a teacher's mentality, which is the worst thing United need. And I think now it's getting a bit tough, where last year it was working. it's going to go against you. And the other dickhead is the Glaziers. The Glaziers for me, mate, the Glaziers for me, how they are there is unbelievable. And they are part of the problem that is setting the culture. If you're going to blame Ten Hag for losing Sancho, these are the idiots bringing these players in on overinflated wages, giving them everything, training ground falling apart, Old Trafford falling apart. United is in a big mess. And until I think the Man United fans start turning on the players a bit, because I am sick of hearing the players getting a free ride. They have made more sorries this year than got points. I'm sick of seeing Instagram posts from my players going, I'm sorry, we didn't perform this week. Fuck off and do your job. But I think something needs to change because I've got a fear we're the next Chelsea.
Yeah. Look, to use a comparison, there's a lot of Carlton about Manchester United prior to this year. There's only so long you can live on the Manchester United name. We know how powerful Manchester United were. We grew up with it, mate. Manchester United was scary. New generations coming up, to them it's a fairy tale. It's folklore about this great Manchester United team. They never saw it. There's only so long you can live on that. It's like Carlton talking about their 16 premierships. We don't care. Like the young fans don't care about what happened. They care what's happening. They could lose an entire generation of fans, especially given the fact that Manchester City down the road are absolutely flogging it. I have read reports about the training ground. Oh, sorry, not the training ground. The actual ground, Old Trafford. Bit of, everyone loves the history and the way it looks, but is it a world-class, first-class stadium at the moment? I don't know. Are they putting the money into that? So there is a lot of, dare I say it, the late John Elliott. Oh, we're Carlton. We don't rebuild. We're Manchester United. We don't rebuild. There's a bit of that about it. And to me, sometimes that the hardest thing to do for a big, powerful club is to sit back and accept where they are and what's going wrong before you can fix it. Otherwise, it's just going to be more Band-Aids over cracks. Band-Aids over cracks, Band-Aids over cracks.
Mate, I feel, Chris, it's not just the rats in the bathroom. They're in the boardroom, fucking dressing room, out on the fucking pitch. You know what I think it is? I think there's a little bit of arrogance at United.
Yeah.
A bit of arrogance as well. There's massive ego in the fan base who still dine out on, the glorious night against Bayern Munich in 99, winning the treble. Do you know what I mean? The great battles we had with Arsenal. And that's history. But you know what scares me the most about United? I watched them, and I said this about Carlton a couple of years ago. I don't know what I'm going to get. I don't know what we stand for anymore. There was a time that I could watch them since 1989, the first game I remember, and you knew what you were going to get. You were going to get youth players, a bit of identity, counter-attack football, giving it a go. And now it's like we're just a shell. Everything is a shell at United. And you know what's taken over? It's the clout. Like Respil Bosnak says, they'll have the clout for another decade. That's what's holding them back. It's the name that is the thing now. It's not what we stand for. It's the PR. We are Netflix FC.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there's so much Carlton about them. It's crazy when you look at it like that. That just living on their name, the arrogance, the just, we're Manchester United, we're entitled to it. It's just.
You see, Red Pill, I agree with you. The arrogance is priceless if you use it as standard setting. If you say, we're Man United, we don't lose 3-1 at home to Brighton, we play on the front foot. That's great. When your arrogance, I feel like the Man United fans, their arrogance is this. It's all right, though. It'll get better if the Glaziers go. But the arrogance should be the Glaziers aren't fit to run this football club. They aren't. Yeah. So we're pulling out. Until you fuck off, pull out. the arrogance should be the standard. It shouldn't be, oh, it's all right. Man United will come back. We'll win a Champions League. We'll catch City. Because it's not going to happen. Yeah. We're falling further. Like, you look at City this weekend versus us, the golfing class is miles. It's a decade away.
Yeah. Yeah, and the one thing a lot of United fans keep hanging their hats on, and they slag off City, you've got no history. You just, you got no this, got no that. Well, you know what? They're going to have that. In 10 years' time, when my daughter's 16, she ain't going to know anything about Manchester United. She's going to be the greatest team of all time is Manchester City. It has to be, because look at what they've done. Do you know what I mean? Like,
you know what? My kid asked me what was the best side that I ever saw, right? And I was like, the 99 United side was pretty good. I was like, and then the mid-noughties side was pretty good. And then he asked me this, were they as good as City? And that actually broke me. Because I'm like, to him, City is the greatest team he's ever seen.
Well,
it's the benchmark.
Yeah, but they are the greatest team that this generation has ever seen, and it will be. It will be. It's, it's a bizarre state of affairs when, when you do think about it, the generation coming up, and even the ones who aren't even born yet, are going to remember Man City rather than Man United. Don't underestimate how difficult it is to keep kids, adolescents, focused in the era of social media and TikToks and all this bullshit and FIFA and all that stuff. Kids, NBA, the era of NBA, where they support players, not franchises. They support the player. They follow LeBron around, and that's happening now in the gridiron too. American culture is filtering it. People are going to follow players rather than clubs. Don't underestimate it. You will have your rusted on do or die, but there is going to be a large percentage who are just going to be like, Dad, I don't give a fuck about Man United. I'm watching Haaland every week.
Fuck it. Mate, it needs to turn. It needs to turn because this is dark. This is dark at the minute, and until these two in the screen sort it out, I feel like it's going to get progressively worse. Because I think the worst thing they can do is sack Ten Hag. I think, in all honesty, the Glazers need to do the right thing and sell to a bit of the old Saudi money.
Absolutely,
Saudi dollar. But
absolutely.
That being said, we go on to next week, and we start with a cracking fixture. Palace versus Fulham, right? What a tie this could be. We like both teams. Faz, you've gone with the draw. I'm going with Fulham.
Yeah, I like both teams. I like what Palace have been doing. It's going to be tough. Fulham are playing bloody good football, but I can just see a Roy Hodgson masterclass to hold them back and get a draw here.
Matt, I think that's fair. I like Fulham. There's something about them. They're a feel good. They're one of the least hateable London clubs.
Yeah,
and London clubs are quite easy to hate, to be fair.
Absolutely.
But then we go to Kenilworth. Is it a real ground? Not many people know, but Luton entertain Wolves. This game could be either one or two ways. The best game of the week or paint drying. Faz going with maybe the best game we've ever seen. I'm going with 1-0 Luton, though. Faz, this could be an intriguing one, isn't it?
It could be. It could be. I'd love to see Luton get their first win of the season. I think they're going to get the draw here. I know Wolves are good for a goal, but I don't know if they're good for two. So we'll see. We'll see. I went 1-1 with this one. I think they've proven Luton that it is a shocking place to go for professional footballers. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I've gone with a nice little 1-1.
A lot of Wolves love in the chat. Adam going 2-0 and Lang. Wouldn't be surprised. Do you know what I mean? Hey, tell you what, full house. Everyone loves the Wolves, but then we got
Wolves loves or disrespect to Luton, whichever one.
I've just got a feeling Kenilworth 1-0 Shut
Yeah.
up. Everyone gets
Yeah.
on the beers. But then we go to City, Nottingham Forest. No one giving them a prayer here. Both of us going 3-0.
Yeah.
I've got a feeling, when Haaland missed like 3 clear-cut chances, that screamed to me that someone's going to pay the price. And then I saw the fixture. Forest. I was like, Haaland's going to take the piss.
Yeah. Danger.
Danger game.
Yeah. Just danger centre backs. No.
But 3-0, we've both gone there. Then we've got Brentford entertain Everton. Dyche found a little bit of defence, but we are both going with multiple goals. Brentford to return to winning ways. 2-0 Fazz, 3-0 for me. Fazz, what are you thinking of this one?
I really wanted to go a draw. I really did. I love Shaun Dyche's game on the weekend. I really wanted to. But nah. I just couldn't. Not get Brentford. They're a good team, a quiet achiever team, and I think they'll get one early. And I just don't think Everton will have the ability to get back, and then one early, one late, with a lot of nothing in the middle.
I think that's fair. I agree with you. And then we go to my team, United. We travel the short journey, not that far, to Burnley, to the wonderful old ground there at Turf Moor. You've gone 2-1 United. I am tipping a draw. Faz, talk to me. Convince me.
I'm playing the long game. You can't be shit forever. That's all I got for you. And you know what? And I'd be a hypocrite by saying I've been shit canning Burnley every week on here. I'm going the long game. Just like you'll see when we get down, what a fucking idiot that I've done later on. But I'm going the long game. We'll get there.
Yeah, I've got a feeling Turf Moor, this is one of them games, has written all over it that Company starts getting linked with bigger jobs. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I get that horrible feeling. Like, I actually did originally have 1-0 Burnley, just so everyone knows.
Oh, wow.
So if next week we lose, I was like, I could see like a masterclass, and then people start talking about, could Company do it at a big club, big budget?
Yeah.
I feel like there's more going on. And I will have conceded 3 goals against Bayern, but having got up and watched it this morning, I actually think that's the worst 4-3 game I've ever seen from United. But then we've got probably the tie of the round. Arsenal, Spurs. Tasty. This is probably the only derby I remember where they've been so good. Like, usually Arsenal was so much better, or there's been them couple of seasons where Spurs have been in real good form. This is an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah, tasty. Absolutely tasty. Again, it's like it's one of those ones where they're both fighting at the top of the table. I couldn't split them at all. That's why I've gone the 2-2, because I can't split them. I think Postecoglou's just got this team humming. I think Arsenal are just going. I think they're just going, which is great. And that's not a criticism. I think they've set themselves up nicely. They're just going. That's why I've got a 2-2. 2-2.
I think that's fair. I mean, I tried. I've tipped all of Arsenal's fuck-ups this year. I enjoy doing it. I think Arsenal were too good. I genuinely think this is the first time Angie's going to come up against real quality opposition. I think Arteta's too smart. Too smart.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can see that. And you're right. It is one of the first times Angie's going to come up against a good opposition, and we'll see. But I'm backing Angie, and I'm backing Tottenham in, and to get the draw. But it's not going to surprise me. You know what I mean?
Hey, it's high level football. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's tough. And to answer your question, Red Pill, they didn't make a mass amount of changes, to be fair. I mean, Raya played, who's been their starting the last couple of White, Saliba, Gabriel, Zinchenko, Odegaard, Rice, Havertz is pretty much They haven't rotated. So, I mean, fatigue could be a factor. But, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. But then we move on to fan favourites of this show, Brighton. Yeah. We don't have second teams, but these are a team that I highlight because I like watching Brighton. 3-0, Fazz is going, I'm going 2-0. This should be easy.
I think it'll just be process driven. They'll get the job done. Bournemouth are shaky at the back. They'll get the goals they need. At home, shocking place to go. This has got a pretty easy win written all over it, to be honest.
Has anyone else got a soft spot for managers like De Zerbi who turn up in like a suit jacket, a jumper, and brilliant white trainers in dress shoes? He looks cool. Yeah.
He does. He does. I think cool is the right word. He looks very cool. Yeah.
And then we have Fazz's team, Chelsea. He's backing him in. Again, I'm backing a draw here. Fazz, is this the week? Is this the week Chelsea turn it around?
Nah. I'm playing the long game. I just think they can't be this shit for this long. They can't. You can't. Not with that squad. But this is with no confidence. 3-0 with no confidence. I'm going for a Hail Mary here.
It can't be shit that long coming from a Carlton fan. That is bold.
I know.
Define long time, Fazz.
my whole life.
Everyone's tipping Villa in the chat, Fazz. So I mean that'll be interesting. Jeff, deservedly dressed by his wife. Well, I mean he's Italian, so Italian men genuinely have a bit of flair. So I could see him dressing himself.
Yeah, no, why not? But everyone in the chat going for Villa won't be the first time that I've gone against the popular vote. And I
can't wait to come back next week to see Chelsea 5-0. Absolute masterclass. But then Chelsea looking like vintage Chelsea.
But then you'll just snip that I had with no confidence whatsoever.
Well, then we get your team. You've got a horrible couple of weeks. You've played City and Liverpool. You're going to Anfield. Same margin. You've got them scoring. I've not. Fazz could. I mean, this will be a game that I will be hoping you do it because I fucking hate Liverpool. Could you do it though?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely, they can.
Anfield,
I don't think they will, but I think they can. Anything's possible. My only criticism, if I can be so bold and brazen into say of West Ham, is we concede goals and shit goals too. That's my problem. Moyes is kind of we are looking good going forward, but geez, we concede some shit goals. I can see if we can get back to that real dogged defense. I think West Ham need to get Aguerd out of their back four, put in Mavropanos, and really lock down that back four. I think they can get a bullshit 1-0, whether it's a Ward-Prowse free kick, set piece, whatever, and hold on to it, maybe. But I'm just going with the logical, which I know that sounds bizarre, me going logical considering my previous tips above. But I just think Liverpool, they're going about it quietly. And this could be the game that really puts them back on the map and says, hang on a minute, people need to start looking at them. It's a big effort to beat European champions. So I think,
Mate, you've got two teams with huge European history here. Do you know what I mean? Like, and West Ham's recent European history. Do you know what I mean? You have to go back a couple of years for Liverpool's European things. But no, I agree with you. I mean, I can see, I could see this being a 1-1 draw, to be honest. But
yeah,
I've gone logic. And then we end with a game that I think is an intriguing fixture. These are the ones that when you've had a short week like Newcastle had, you probably don't want to go to Bramall Lane away. Right?
No.
And this came into my mind with the tipping, but I did go with Newcastle. But Fazz 3-1. I've gone 2-0.
This to cap off a great week for Newcastle, and I think this again, like I said with Liverpool just before, I think this is going to be the game where they're kind of back to it. You know, they stamp their authority, get another good win, start climbing up that ladder, and I think they do it comfortably. Something a bit stinky as Sheffield, as they're saying, or the manager's going to get sacked or whatever. But watch out for late goals.
Well, I mean, it's one of them, isn't it, where, you know, it's how they've travelled, isn't it? I mean, a big thing I think in this game is how did they hold up? It's probably the first time in a while Newcastle have played 2 games with such a short turnaround in the big time, which we have seen it's affected teams historically in the past, but I feel like they should be way too strong to beat this mob.
You bloody hope so. You hope so. For their sake, for their season's sake. They need to win these games. They have to.
I mean, they do. I mean, especially when they're chasing European football again next year as well. It's something that you'd hope they'd have it in them. It's going to be interesting, though.
It is that real balancing act, isn't it? They're in the Champions League. They're not going to win the Champions League. So their only avenue to getting European football again is either by the table or winning one of the other trophies. It's a balancing act, because the last thing you want is to play Champions League and then next season no European football. So it's one of those ones, you know. Do they look at, is it better for them to? I know I'm not saying I agree with this, by the way, but is it better for them to finish 3rd in their group in Champions League, drop down to Europa, win the Europa League, so they at least get European football again? I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, because it is paramount for Newcastle to have European football next season. That has to be their number one priority. Have to have European football next season. Whether it being winning FA Cup, winning whatever it is, they have to have European football next season.
Oh, mate. I mean, especially when you've brought players in as well of the magnitude they have, like Tonali and stuff. Like, they've come there, obviously, to play with the best. I mean, they've left a club that is ingrained in Champions League football in AC Milan. So I agree with you. I mean, it's going to be an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, I'd imagine that they're looking at the way the table's going, though, and thinking top 4 is guaranteed, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a log jam in there. It's just going to take 3 or 4 good results and you're back in the race again. So, I wouldn't be panicking if I was Newcastle just yet. But again, these are the wins they need. If they drop points here, then it starts to become, okay, do we need to look at, do they start panicking again? I don't know. I just hope they hold their nerve.
Mate, it's going to be a good week of football based on that. But as always, thank you very much, everyone. Really engaging this week, and enjoy your weekend. And hopefully we've got another double up next weekend with football and round ball.
Yeah, absolutely. That's living the dream. But always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Cheers, guys. Look after yourselves. See you next week.